rail really, Heather. There's a lot of transport trucks coming in and out of here. This is where they unload their containers, and then they're loaded on the trains, and off they go to as far away as Vancouver, and then they're loaded onto ships, some of those containers. So these guys walked off the job at about 1 a.m. this morning on a strike, a legal strike. And let's talk to one of them now about some of the issues. We're going to bring Chris in, who's a union representative for Teamsters for some of these workers here. So Chris, just tell us a bit about why you are on strike. How did it get to this point?
The company and the union have failed to come to an agreement to protect our collective agreement, and yeah, we just need our voice to be heard right now. We're pretty much a little fed up. We went without a contract last time for about 2 years before it all got ratified, and now we just need our voice to be heard to protect our collective agreement.
Can you outline for us a couple of the key issues that you are negotiating over? I understand some of them have to do with safety conditions, work hours. What are the outstanding issues that you can't reach an agreement on?
Yeah, right now some of our points of contention are our drug benefit plan. The company wants to put a lifetime cap on prescription drugs. One of the other big points of contention is our fatigue and our protection of time off in between our shifts. So those are the kind of the main focuses that we want the company to deal with.
Okay, and I do see back behind us there is a rail line, and we can see it moving, Heather. So there are some trains moving today. So things haven't exactly ground to a halt today. Chris, what is going on?
Yeah, no, right now they've locked out all of the conductors, or sorry, all the conductors are on strike. They're not locked out, but the engineers are still working. They are working with managers as stepping into our place. So intermodal trains are moving, as our lovely reporter has said. The intermodal trains are moving between Toronto and Vancouver, and that's the only focus that they have. All regular freight has come to a complete halt.
Yeah, and intermodal is the name of this
yes.
facility here. And just lastly then, Chris, what impact do you think this strike could have on the economy in Canada, on various sectors?
Yeah, well, it's definitely going to delay a lot of normal shipments. Right now, everything else here is getting delayed. We supply Walmart, we supply Canadian Tire, so a lot of the big companies are going to feel an impact, so the Canadian economy will definitely feel an impact, along with the grain sector and the oil sector.
And the auto sector, you said as well, you were telling me too, the Ford plant in Oakville affected by some of the operations today as well.
That's correct, yeah. I work out of the Ford plant of Oakville, so they're not going to get any shipments in the next little while, so the auto sector will definitely be affected as well. So it's going to hurt a little bit. That's not our goal. Our goal is for the company and the union to come to a negotiated settlement, but we need our voices to be heard.
Okay, I'll let you get back over there. Thanks, Chris. And as he was just saying, Heather, negotiations between CN and the union have been going on for 7 months, and they failed to reach an agreement. They've had the help of federal arbitrators, I believe, over the last few months. That hasn't gotten anywhere, so the union gave their notice of a strike on Friday, and as I mentioned earlier, they have now gone on strike as of 1 a.m. So that is the latest from here, and I think Jacqueline's going to get a bit more into the broader impact, but yeah, for now, there's a lot of trucks coming and going, some of them honking their horns in support of these workers who are out on strike, Heather.
Okay, Megan, thank you very much for this morning's live reporting. Megan Fitzpatrick in Brampton, Ontario, and Jacqueline Hansen is, in fact, going to talk about that broader economic impact. She fills in for Scott for us this week. We've talked about CN as the largest rail company in the country. Jacqueline, even though there is some movement there, which surprised you, I know, as we talked last hour, what kind of an impact are we talking about here potentially?
Well, it's what CN was concerned about, any disruption to its service really, which is why it was trying to encourage the workers to agree to binding arbitration. But I spoke with the Teamsters representative this morning, and he said that he and the workers, they want to come to a natural agreement. But those affected, as that a Teamsters representative was mentioning, from the Ford plant to different companies that are trying to transport product, but we're also talking about major industries like farmers, farming in Canada, as well as forestry and oil producers. Those industries rely on the rail system to get their commodities and crops to market. And for farmers in particular, this has already been a rough year. They've had bad weather. There's been the trade dispute between Canada and China that's really led to a real slump in sales for canola. But many farmers, they grow multiple crops. This is peak season for shipping things like wheat and canola. So this strike, really a major concern for them. Here's a statement from the Alberta Barley Group, which is calling for the government to take action. The chair of Alberta Barley, Dave Bishop, he says that we need to see immediate action from the federal government to prevent any delays in rail service, not only to ensure farmers can be paid, but also to avoid jeopardizing our global export markets. And those farmers groups, that group and others, point out that if they don't get paid, they're unable to pay their creditors. So people who they perhaps borrowed money from for their supplies, like fertilizer, that sort of thing. So it could potentially have an economic ripple effect. And it just so happens that CN Rail is part of a webcast this morning, Heather. So the Scotiabank Transportation and Industrials Conference, the CN's Vice President of Investor Relations is speaking right now. So I will be listening into that to see if CN addresses this strike any further this morning, and I will bring that back to you, Heather.
Okay, sounds good, Jacqueline. Thank you very much. Our Jacqueline Hansen looking at the broader economic threads of this. And as we watch that story play out across the country, here's the capital of our country, and we'll be watching that spot closely today and tomorrow, but tomorrow especially when Prime Minister Justin Trudeau unveils